Okay, hello everyone. My name is Laquan Williams, and today in this video, I wanted to do a review for the the first season of Dexter's revive series called New Blood, and that second episode came out just today on Sunday, November 14th, 2021. The title of the episode is called Storm of Fuck. The second episode, overall, there's going to be 10 in total. The first episode was last Sunday on the November 7th, and that was called Cold Snap. So essentially, basically, what's going on is like as if you've been watching the first two episodes now, if you haven't seen them, or at least the first one, obviously, is Dexter Morgan is back and he's in a new town called Iron Lake. It's a small town in upstate New York, where basically it's a small closed knit community that's basically like kind of similar to, like I said when I mentioned in my last week's episode review of the first episode. It's similar to Fargo, and it's like basically kind of like that in basically the part of Minnesota where it's a small town, small community. Everybody knows each other. It's in the wintertime, so it's very cold. There's lots of snow everywhere. It's obviously in a colder climate. And you can see that obviously Dexter's literally living in the woods in a cabin, and he has his own animals there on it's kind of like a farm, but it's not obviously because he's in the snow. But he does have goats out there, and just at the towards the end of this episode of last week, well, halfway through, his son Harrison, who is now 18 years old, when he left him 10 years ago, he was about 6 or 7. So it's like he's about 17, almost going on 18 now. Because when he left him, he was very small, obviously. So now he's like a teenager, basically going into an adult, obviously at a young age, about 17, 18. So essentially, he's back now. That's him right here, next to obviously Dexter Morgan's dad. He's living in obviously this small town of Iron Lake in upstate New York. So it's in New York, but obviously upstate New York. He goes by the name of Jim Lindsay now, because he obviously had to change his name and his whole identity, so nobody can know who he was from his past and know who he is and what he obviously has done or suspect anything that he might have done. Harrison was able to find him somehow. He explained to him in this episode that he looked around for him everywhere, and after one of the return addresses on a message that he got from one of the messages that he sent to I believe Hannah was his stepmother, if I'm not mistaken, who died of cancer. He found that and tracked Dexter down. He said he was in Argentina. He was all over the place, moving from foster care homes, different foster care homes. But he said obviously they didn't want him because he obviously was too old. So that's essentially what's happening now. In this episode, we're picking back up and continuing off from where the first episode was, which was last week, where at the end Dexter Morgan killed Matt Caldwell, who is the son of Kurt Caldwell. He's obviously a spoiled rich kid, and obviously his dad is a big, huge businessman, very popular in the town, lots of money and influence. And he's been throwing his influence around over the past couple of years, donating, to the police and fire department. And he mentioned that in this episode that he needs the police need to keep looking for his son, obviously, because he donated all this money to the police, vehicles, to the shelters, to festivals that they have, where they have big, huge harvest festivals. Everybody brings their food in, kind of like a big, huge, like a celebration basically in a town, a small town, like kind of like a farmer's market. But a festival celebration is where people set up booths, and they have, similar to like a farmer's market, have big, huge, obviously, vendors and shops where people set up their obviously the products outside and stuff and whatnot. So he explained that they needed to find his son, obviously, and Angela, who is the police chief, who Dexter is in a relationship with. After they got into an argument, she explained to him they're trying to do the best they can. Then obviously she said, we're going to continue to look for your son, and he said thank you. So that's basically what happened. He kind of threw his weight around and said, what's going on? My son's still out there. He didn't flee town. Essentially, Dexter made it look like after he shot that deer, the white deer, and killed him, which he did. He almost shot Dexter. That he essentially ran town because he shot the deer on indigenous land for the indigenous people there that are there, and the Native Americans that are there in that small town. Angela, who is the police chief, is also Native American, who Dexter is dating. Her daughter Angela is her daughter's Audrey. She and Harrison were talking to each other along with the rest of the other high school kids on the wrestling team, and they were hanging out. And they essentially also went through Harrison's backpack that he had to see if they could find out something about him. The other kids suspected that he was weird and called him. Then they alluded to him being a psychopath, and how they didn't want to be trapped in that cabin with him in the woods all alone, even though they don't know him essentially. But we'll see what happens with that. Harrison also revealed to the kids, but not Dexter, his father, that he has a drug issue problem that he had in the past. So he had a substance abuse problem, which he's talked about to Audrey, but we'll see if he talks to Dexter about that, because she offered him obviously some weed to smoke, but he said no because he has a drug problem that he kicked a couple years ago. So we'll see what happens with that. Essentially, Dexter made it look like after he killed Matt Caldwell at the end of the first episode last week, that Matt Caldwell killed that deer on the indigenous people's land, which is illegal anyways. You get paid. You have to pay fines for that. You could also face possible jail time. Dexter made it look like he killed him, ran town, and left his glove behind to make it look like he was running up a big huge hill to get onto the highway out of the woods to drive away, because he thought Dexter made it look like he ran. Unfortunately, that didn't work out, because the police obviously are like, well, if he ran, where is he at? But Dexter still tried. He did try to cover his tracks, obviously, like you can see here in the title of this article on tvline.com. But still, obviously, his dad's setting up shop. He's got lots of money, power, influence, and obviously he's very rich and powerful. So he's going to tell them that, like I said, like what he did, tell you guys, he looking for my son. I don't know if they're eventually going to find out if he's dead. Obviously, they're not going to find a body, because Dexter has his body hidden and obviously under his fireplace, and he's probably going to burn the rest of his body pretty soon, or dump it somewhere in the river where they can't find it, because Dexter does he does fish out there in the Arctic where he's at. There's it's literally like that. He would sit on the put his bait and fish up so he can catch the fish, but he would come back to it after. But it's literally like ice cubes. Like if you step on it, you can go through it under the water. So if he did dump his body down there, they wouldn't find it, obviously, because it would be floating anywhere under the river. Obviously, with the ice on top of it, it's not going to pop up under. Obviously, it would literally have to drill holes through the ice cubes in the water of the glaciers in order to get down there and get his body parts, if they did. But knowing Dexter, he's probably just going to burn him. Probably would make more sense. Obviously, with Harrison having to get into high school now, he has the time to do that, obviously, while he's away. Or also, like I said, dump the body parts down there in the river. The glaciers down there very far, because it's literally like big, huge, like I said, Arctic, where he fishes, so he could dump his Matt Caldwell's body parts down there. Essentially, what happened was Matt shot the deer. Dexter, the blood splatter hit Dexter in the face, and he actually almost shot Dexter because the deer was so close to him. Dexter got so furious and pissed off because of that, and he's saying, this idiot almost shot me. So he said, what are you doing? Dexter got pissed. He gun butted him with his rifle, because Dexter had a hunting rifle. Matt had an automatic weapon that he sold him at his a sporting goods store, because that's where Dexter Morgan works at now, in this small town of Iron Lake in New York, upstate New York. He works there as a cashier / salesperson or sales associate. Like I said, his new name is Jim Lindsay, and that's what he's going under as his new identity in that town that he's been in for about, I don't know how long. He says he's been there for years, but the Angela situation, that relationship just started recently. So, but like I said, it's smart that Dexter is dating the police chief, because that keeps him off the radar. It keeps him off the radar or under the radar, either way, and it also keeps him looking as the least suspicious as possible. It also allows him to keep tabs on Angela and the police, and to know what they know about Matt Caldwell and any other cases in the area. We also saw that one of the girls that were kidnapped by these psychopaths that Dexter will probably find out very soon, because they're also I guess you can say the bad guys in the story, who are kidnapping girls and obviously keeping them prisoner, and also probably torturing and killing them, because all these girls are missing. There was only one that was shown in a place where she looked like it was a hotel room, but she didn't know she thought she was going to be able to get out, I guess, after she kind of had some wine and partied with, well, not party, she kind of partied by herself, but she thought everything was okay with it. The camera that was up in the roof told her she was going to die, and was basically scared, obviously, and the guys who kidnapped her were watching her. It looks like there's two guys, and it was one guy watching her, but it looks like it's a team of two guys kidnapping girls and torturing them, and they're using guns as well. So we'll see what happens with that. If Dexter does help the police Dexter does help the police take these guys down, or if he does it himself and leads the police to where these guys are essentially left, I guess, in pieces, and obviously can give them clues as to how they did it, how they ran their operation. That's basically what's going on. And also, the Trinity killer from the past, on Dexter's show is supposed to be showing up some type of how. Apparently his kids are in this show, and that's what's going to be the nexus for him returning back somehow. I don't know how that's going to work. We'll see what happens with that. If Dexter and him are going to have some type of interaction, or if Dexter's going to sneak around and try to confront him by himself. Obviously, it obviously would be something that he would need to do secretly, because Dexter doesn't want that guy to spill his secrets out to the whole entire town and for people to know who he is, because he's also a serial killer just like Dexter. So we'll see what happens with that. Apparently some of his kids are on the wrestling team, and I guess there were some of them that were shown in this episode that were with Harrison, and also Angela, the police chief who Dexter's dating, her stepdaughter. They were all together hanging out and party and stuff in the cabin in the woods. So we'll see what happens with that. That's essentially what's happening. Deborah Morgan, obviously Dexter's sister who is dead, kept telling him that he's very messed up and he should just leave Harrison alone, and he should listen to her. He told her, listen, I have another chance with my son. I'm going to take it, and I'm going to try to do the best I can to protect him, just like Harrison, Harry, who he named his son after, did the same for me, his stepfather, who adopted him. So that's what Dexter's obviously doing. He says he doesn't want to give up on him. Essentially, he could tell him to go away, which he did in the first episode, towards the end, the halfway part. Then at the end, he came up into him at the bus stop and told him, come home with me. I'm your father. I'm sorry I did that to you. He found him anyway, so it's kind of a hard thing to do, because, yes, he could tell him to leave, but he could stay around somehow and sneak around and obviously stay in the town of Silver Lake or Iron Lake. But Dexter obviously would have to keep tabs on him, obviously, because he doesn't know him very well anymore, because he hasn't seen his son in over 10 years now. Now is obviously almost the same size as him, as you can see here in the picture, Harrison. When he left him in Miami, when he faked his death, as he asked Dexter, he was about 6-7 years old, about. Now he's obviously about 17, almost 18 years old, so going into high school, being a full-on teenager / young man, and also an adult. So that's basically it. I really like and enjoy I've been enjoying the show so far. It's really cool. Like I said, it's different to see Dexter in a different environment. Also, for him to be very sneaky around what he's doing, getting to know the people in the town, gain their trust, become a completely and totally different person and character to obviously everybody around him, because he has to obviously stick to being undercover, obviously, as to who he is. But we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, it wasn't good just today in this episode when the police came and they set up a whole entire search grid in front of Dexter's house. He's like, what's going on? I got caught. That's impossible. He was like, oh, this isn't good. So when they came and Angela said, hey, because it sucks obviously for Dexter, obviously, because they said they're like, oh yeah, we know Matt Caldwell was missing in the woods around here. Your house has a very good vantage point, and we could look around to see if we can find him and use clues. And Dexter said, and Angela told Dexter that. He said, yeah, sure, that's fine. Even though he obviously didn't mean that. He said he didn't want them there to begin with, because obviously the police are stupid around his house, and he literally just killed Matt Caldwell there a couple of days ago. And there was actually blood all over in the woods in the snow, which Dexter had to get rid of and cover up so they couldn't find it. He also had to make sure any evidence that he was had Matt's blood on it, Matt Caldwell's blood, had to be apprehended by Dexter and taken and hid so he couldn't be caught. So he was literally, like I said, covering his tracks, as you can see in the article and making sure he covered up any blood spills or blood blood spills or trails that were in the woods, because it was on the snow. So he had to make sure he did whatever he could to do that so they wouldn't suspect him. And he played it very well, obviously. Being a former forensics scientist and crime scene investigator, he's able to do that, obviously. So it did help him out that he was able to keep like I said, keep the police behind his actions, and basically, like I said, always stay ahead of them, 2 steps ahead of them. So eventually we'll probably see him with police scanners, obviously, and radios, so he can listen in to see what they're doing and what's been going on with these cases involving these girls being kidnapped, because I think some bodies are going to start showing up about involving these girls, and also they're going to start getting suspicious about Matt what's his name? Matt Caldwell. Caldwell. Obviously his whole entire situation with him being missing. So that's what's essentially is going to happen. Obviously Dexter can't tie it into those missing girls, because those guys who are psychopaths or serial killers are only taking girls and kidnapping them who are young, under the age of probably almost it looks like they're almost barely 18. So they're taking young girls and kidnapping them. He can't trick the police into thinking that the same guys who are doing who are kidnapping these girls also kidnapped and killed Matt Caldwell, because that doesn't look right. So it's obviously not going to be the same thing. The case won't be the same. Obviously, the specifics won't, because that doesn't fit their MO. So Dexter's obviously going to have to just uh, worry about trying to track them down and help the police, because that's going to be another distraction. Because once those girls' bodies start piling up because they're missing, I think they're going to probably forget about Matt Caldwell, and this will kind of be a big, huge problem, because his father's going to be like, well, my son's missing. He's more important. You need to look for him. These girls have been missing for years. Let's just stick to that. Obviously, his power and influence are going to be used against the whole entire police force, as he did in this episode when he was yelling at Angela, and she told him, look, we're trying to do the best we can. And he was like, you need to find my son. I'm helping you guys out as far as my contributions to the community, and donating all of these goods and vehicles and stuff. Guys need to stick around here and not leave you until you find my son, is what he said. So he threw his weight around, his money, power, and influence around. So we'll see what happens with that. Again, that's basically it. That's all I have to say about this in regards to Dexter's new season / revival, which is called New Blood. It's only supposed to be 10 episodes, and apparently there will not be a second season. The writers / I guess what are the producers or directors? There's some articles out here I just looked at them saying that this is going to be a wrap up of the whole entire series in total, and they're not going to do a second season. So that'll be just basically it. We'll see what happens with that. I would like to see a second season, but I mean, you never know. I don't know. Things do change. We'll see what happens. I don't know. We really don't know. So we'll see what happens, though. But yeah, I'm just hoping that we can see that, or if when the show does end, that it does end on a very good and positive note. We'll see what happens with that. And that's basically it. Yeah, the show has been good. It'll be very interesting to see if Dexter obviously has to eventually explain to his son Harrison right here who he was, obviously, as his past when it comes to the crimes he's committed and him being a serial killer. We don't know if obviously Harrison is going to be doing anything like that himself, if he's going to go out and attack people. But seeing as how he doesn't know what his father is doing, I don't think he's going to do that, or he knows who his father obviously was. So we'll see what happens with that. And that's basically it. That's all I have to say about this for Dexter's second episode. This is basically season 9. The show ended in 8 seasons a couple years ago in 2013. So this is basically New Blood is season 9. This is episode 2. The review of it, and that'll basically be it for my video, and that's all I have to say. Let me know what you have to think down in the comment section if you haven't seen the first 2 episodes of Dexter's New Blood, and how do you feel about it now that Dexter's in a whole completely different environment and whatnot. And I guess you can say, how do you feel about the new characters on the show, obviously, because it's a whole new cast, obviously, aside from obviously his sister Deborah Morgan, who he talks to. Obviously she's obviously dead and a ghost, but he does still talk to her. So we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, it's the interactions with them are obviously very cool, even though she's not there physically because she's supposed to be a ghost. But it's still cool to see them talk to each other. Obviously, it's obviously very it's obviously entertaining, because they're obviously arguing back and forth, and Deborah is yelling at Dexter, and he's telling her to be quiet and leave me alone. And I know what I'm doing, essentially, because it's different from what we saw with Harry, who was his stepfather, who was a ghost who was dead. He was always talking to Dexter, but it was never an argument. They argued, but it was never like he was yelling or shouting and cursing at him like Deborah does, obviously. Harry was more calm with it because he knew who Dexter was, obviously, and he helped him on his missions, and obviously when he was scouting people to obviously take out and execute. So that's basically what's going on. That's basically the end of my video again. Thanks again for watching, and that's all I have to say about Dexter: A New Blood. This is the second episode. Overall, there'll be 10, and that's basically it. Thank you again. Bye.